I asked Selena Gomez why Taylor Swift never ages, and I wish I never heard her answer. What Selena told me wasn't just a revelation, it was a warning. A warning that, once I heard it, I couldn't unhear. I thought it was just a harmless curiosity, but that one question changed everything. Now I'm trapped in a reality I never asked for, and it's all because of what Selena said. We were just having dinner, nothing special, just two friends catching up. Selena and I had known each other for years, so the conversation was easy. We were talking about everything and nothing at the same time. It was a casual night, but I couldn't shake this thought that had been nagging at me for weeks. It started as a simple observation. Taylor Swift, year after year, looked the same. There were whispers about it online, jokes in interviews, and memes comparing her to Benjamin Button. But the more I thought about it, the more I started wondering, what's her secret? I couldn't resist asking Selena. She had to know something, right? I mean, she's friends with Taylor. Maybe she let something slip, even if it was just a joke. It seemed harmless enough. So I asked, why does Taylor never age? What's her secret? The moment the words left my mouth, I knew something was wrong. Selena's face went pale. She didn't smile, didn't laugh. Her expression turned cold, and her eyes looked like they were staring right through me, as if she could see something I couldn't. She sat back, put her drink down, and said, almost too softly, "You don't want to know." I thought she was just playing around, messing with me, maybe making a joke. I laughed it off. Come on, what are you talking about? Seriously, what is it? Skincare? Magic? But she didn't smile. She didn't even blink. It was like she had shut down. I could see it in her eyes. There was fear there. Something I hadn't expected from someone who was always so calm and collected. You really don't want to ask that, she repeated, her voice cracking just a little. Trust me. And that was it. The conversation ended. Just like that, it was over. I thought she was being overly dramatic. I mean, it was Taylor Swift we were talking about. This was the same person who once talked about a cat in a live interview and made it sound like pure gold. Surely there was an explanation that wasn't some horrible secret, right? But I couldn't stop thinking about it. The way Selena reacted wasn't normal. She wasn't acting like herself. And I was left with this unshakable feeling. Something wasn't right. I could almost feel a shift in the air, like a warning, but one I didn't understand. The night went on, but I couldn't focus on anything else. I kept replaying Selena's words in my head. You don't want to know. The way she said it, the way her voice trembled slightly, it didn't sit right with me. I should have let it go. I should have dropped it right then and there. But something inside me pushed me forward. Curiosity, a need to know, desire to uncover the mystery that was growing darker with every passing minute. And so, instead of leaving it alone, I did what most people would do in this situation. I went looking for answers. I started by searching online, of course. The usual rabbit holes. I found dozens of articles, blog posts, and theories that swirled around Taylor's agelessness. It was mostly speculation and jokes, with a dash of mystery thrown in. The usual celebrity nonsense, but something about it felt off. What was I really looking for? As I scrolled through the endless pages, I started noticing patterns, oddly specific details that didn't add up. In some photos, Taylor looked too young, too perfect. In others, there were strange inconsistencies that shouldn't have been there. And that's when I started to feel it. The shift. The one that Selena warned me about, the one I had ignored. It was like stepping into a fog where everything around me was becoming harder to see, to touch, to believe. But I didn't know how deep I was about to fall. But I couldn't turn back now. The more I searched, the deeper I fell, straight into a world I wasn't ready to understand. For the next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled into me after my conversation with Selena. It wasn't just her words. It was the way she'd reacted. The strange, almost haunted look in her eyes. Something in her had snapped the moment I asked about Taylor. That warning, "You don't want to know," kept echoing in my mind, over and over. I should have let it go. I should have respected her caution, but curiosity gnawed at me. The more I thought about it, the more I needed to know. What was it that Selena was so afraid of? Why did asking about Taylor seem like crossing a line? By the third day, I couldn't ignore it any longer. I reached out to Selena. She picked up, but there was something off in her tone. Cold, distant, nothing like the carefree woman I'd always known. "What's up?" I asked, trying to sound casual, like everything was fine. "You shouldn't have asked that," she said flatly, no emotion in her voice. "You're digging into something you can't understand. Please just drop it." I could hear the strain in her voice. She wasn't joking. There was real fear there, but I didn't care about fear, not at that moment. I wanted answers. "Selena, what are you talking about? You're acting like I asked about something evil. It's just Taylor." Her silence on the other end felt suffocating, like the air had gone thick. I could feel her hesitating, debating whether or not to tell me. Finally, she spoke. "It's not just her agelessness. It's everything. It's what it's doing to you. What it does to anyone who digs into it." I could feel my chest tighten. What did she mean by that? "What's it doing to me?" I demanded. She didn't answer right away. "You're already in too deep," she whispered. "You've already crossed the line. There's no coming back from this. Just let it go." I didn't care about what she was saying. I couldn't. My brain wouldn't let me rest. I felt like a part of me was missing, like a piece of a puzzle I couldn't quite find. There was something here, something Selena knew, something that wasn't just about Taylor. It was about the world I was living in. I pressed her again. "Tell me, please. What's happening?" Her voice trembled this time. "I can't. Not over the phone. You have to see it for yourself." There was a long pause. I waited, but she didn't speak. I was beginning to feel like she was holding her breath, waiting for me to say something. "I'm coming over," I finally said. There was no other option. Selena didn't argue. "Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you." When I arrived at her apartment, she was waiting for me. She looked different. There was a weight in her eyes, like she'd aged years in the last few days. She had the same face, but something in her expression told me this wasn't the same person who had laughed with me just a few days ago. "Come in," she said quietly, her voice barely audible as she gestured for me to follow her inside. The apartment was dark, curtains drawn tightly, the air heavy with something I couldn't quite place. The place felt trapped, like it was holding its breath, as if every corner was hiding a secret. I stepped inside and immediately felt that familiar sense of dread creeping into the pit of my stomach. "Sit down," Selena said. Her voice was low. I could feel the tension in her words. I did as she asked, sinking into the couch across from her. She was visibly shaking. It was clear she hadn't slept, her eyes red. But there was something else, something off. She wasn't looking at me directly, and her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, as if she was holding herself together. "I can't protect you from this," she said, finally looking at me. There was no humor left in her voice. "I shouldn't have warned you, but you need to know. You need to stop looking." I didn't say anything. I was frozen, a part of me already understanding that she wasn't going to give me any easy answers. "Taylor, she's not who you think she is. She's not even human, not the way we are." I leaned forward, my heart racing. "What does that mean? Do you know what agelessness really means?" she asked quietly. "Do you know what kind of price you pay for it?" I shook my head. No, I didn't know, but I needed to. I needed to understand what this was all about. Selena took a deep breath, and then, almost as if she was forcing herself to say the words, she spoke again. "Taylor, she's trapped. She's stuck in a cycle, a never-ending one. Every few years she's reborn, but she never truly lives. She stays the same, but she's losing pieces of herself with every passing cycle. She's not just timeless, she's caught in a loop. And anyone who dares to get too close, they get caught too. That's why she's never truly aging, because she's never really living. She's existing in multiple realities at once, moving through them like a ghost." I could feel the blood drain from my face. This wasn't what I expected. It was worse. It was far worse. But why is this happening? "How can she do this?" I asked, my voice trembling. "She didn't ask for it," Selena said, her voice shaking now. "None of us do. But once you know the truth, you're part of it. You're dragged into it. You start seeing things you shouldn't, things that can't be explained." I could feel the tension in my chest tighten. My breath caught in my throat. "So, what now?" Selena's eyes widened. "You've already started slipping. It's already too late. The question you asked, that's what opened the door. And now, there's no way out." The words hit me like a punch in the gut. I had opened the door. And now, I was the one caught in the cycle. Selena's face twisted with regret. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I really am. I tried to warn you." But it was too late. The door had been opened, and now I was about to see something I couldn't unsee. But the truth Selena was afraid to tell me was only the beginning. I had no idea how deep I'd be pulled into the mystery and the horror of Taylor's agelessness. The moment I left Selena's apartment, I knew something had changed. My heart pounded with every step I took, like I had crossed an invisible line I couldn't return from. I wasn't just walking down the same street I had walked 1,000 times before. I felt like I was walking through a different world. And the more I tried to ignore it, the more I realized it wasn't just in my head. Things were different. The streets, though familiar, were quieter. The air didn't feel the same. It was like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something I couldn't understand. I glanced at the sky, expecting to see the normal shade of blue, but instead, the color seemed off, darker, deeper, like it wasn't quite right. I shook my head. This is crazy, I thought. It's just my mind playing tricks on me. I pulled out my phone to check the time. It was 2:37 p.m. But when I glanced back at the clock in the store window beside me, the time was 2:47 p.m. I blinked, then looked again. The numbers hadn't changed, but I had felt time slipping. It was the first crack in the foundation of everything I thought I knew. By the time I got home, the feeling of wrongness had worsened. The apartment was dark, even though I'd left the blinds open. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to stretch unnaturally long. I tried to shake it off, but the weight in my chest was growing heavier. The air was thicker, colder. I reached for the light switch, but stopped mid-motion. For a split second, I could have sworn I saw something move out of the corner of my eye. I turned around quickly, but there was nothing. Just the empty room. Get a grip, I told myself. It's just your nerves. But the feeling didn't go away. And that's when I heard it. A sound, distant but unmistakable. A voice. It was coming from the other room. A woman's voice, faint, like she was whispering, but I couldn't make out the words. I froze, my pulse quickened. Who was in my apartment? I tiptoed forward, heart racing, each step feeling heavier than the last. But when I reached the door, the voice stopped. Complete silence. The only sound now was the deafening beat of my heart in my ears. I opened the door, expecting to find someone or something waiting for me. But the room was empty, just like I left it. Okay, this is getting ridiculous. I went to bed that night, but sleep didn't come easily. The thoughts kept swirling in my head, the warnings from Selena, the feeling that something was changing, shifting in ways I couldn't comprehend. And when I finally drifted off, I woke up what felt like moments later. The clock on my nightstand read 3:02 a.m. But something was wrong. I could feel it in the air, like something had slipped through the cracks. I glanced out the window. The sky was dark, too dark, like it was nighttime, but it wasn't. I tried to dismiss it, but as I stood up, the weight of the world felt heavier than it ever had before. I walked to the kitchen to get some water, trying to ground myself, but the sound of my feet hitting the floor seemed too loud, like I wasn't supposed to hear it. And that's when it happened. I passed the hallway mirror and caught a glimpse of my reflection. But something wasn't right. My reflection was a fraction of a second behind. I stopped, staring at myself, the blood draining from my face. Was it me? Was it my reflection? I took a step back, and it mirrored me. I moved closer, and the reflection did the same, but with a slight delay, almost like I was watching a distorted version of myself. I reached out, my hand trembling, but the reflection did nothing. I pulled my hand back quickly, my heart hammering. This couldn't be happening. I ran my fingers through my hair, my breath ragged, trying to focus. It's just the light. Maybe the mirror's broken. Maybe you're just tired, that's all. But as I turned away, the reflection didn't follow immediately. It lingered for just a moment longer, and that's when I knew. I wasn't imagining this. Everything felt wrong, like I was no longer in my own world. The next morning, I was exhausted. Sleep had been fitful at best. I woke up and stumbled into the bathroom, trying to shake off the lingering sense of dread that clung to me. As I splashed cold water on my face, I glanced at the mirror again, trying to get a grip on myself. But this time, something was different. My face was different. It was subtle at first, just a shift in the angles, the tiniest difference in the shape of my eyes. But as I stared, I realized it wasn't just my tired reflection staring back at me. It was like I was looking at a version of myself from another time. My hair was just a little shorter than I remembered. And my clothes, I had never worn this outfit before. I stepped back. Was I losing my mind? I checked my phone for the time, anything to anchor myself back into the real world. The date was right, the time was right, but everything about the way I felt, the way I looked, told me something was off. I couldn't place it. But the deep sense of dread continued to build. I tried to go about my day, tried to brush it off like I always did, but nothing felt normal anymore. Conversations with friends felt rehearsed. The world around me felt like it was happening in a dream I couldn't wake from. I spent the day trying to focus, but my mind kept drifting back to what Selena had said. You've crossed the line. And that's when I realized what she meant. I hadn't just asked a question. I had opened a door. And now I was walking through it. I could feel the ground beneath me shifting, changing, and there was no way to stop it. But I was only starting to understand the depths of what Selena had warned me about. The more I tried to fight it, the more I realized this wasn't something I could escape. By the time I woke up the next morning, the feeling of wrongness had only grown stronger. It wasn't just a nagging suspicion anymore. It was there, in every moment, like a shadow that followed me around the world. Wasn't just off. It was cracking at the seams. And no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, I couldn't shake the sensation that I was no longer in the world I once knew. I tried to push through the day like it was any other. I went to work, met up with friends, tried to act normal. But it wasn't normal. Every conversation felt like it was rehearsed, like I was speaking lines from a script I didn't know. People's faces, their gestures, their voices, they were all too perfect, too scripted in a way that felt wrong. As the day wore on, I started seeing the cracks. It was subtle at first, things that shouldn't have stood out but did. I stopped by a coffee shop on my lunch break, and as I reached for my usual cup, the barista smiled at me with that exact same smile she gave me every day. But this time, her smile didn't feel real. There was something in her eyes that made me uneasy. She asked if I wanted my usual, but when I nodded, she didn't write it down. She didn't need to. She already knew what I wanted. I told myself it was nothing. It had to be nothing, right? I was just paranoid, nothing more. But the feeling in my chest didn't subside. It grew, deepening with each passing minute. When I left the coffee shop, the street outside seemed wrong. The people were moving in perfect synchrony, too perfect, like they were part of some coordinated routine. As I walked, I tried to shake the anxiety that had settled into my bones. but the city around me felt like a stranger's face. Every car that passed by looked the same. Every person walking in the opposite direction wore the same expression. It was as if I was trapped in a world where every detail was designed, where nothing was left to chance. That evening, when I returned home, the cracks were everywhere. The apartment I lived in for so long now felt unfamiliar. The walls were too close. The space was too narrow. The furniture, the same furniture I had placed in every room, looked strange, like it didn't belong there. I went into the bathroom to wash my face, trying to calm myself down. But when I glanced in the mirror, I stopped. My reflection was moving too slowly, as if it were a few seconds behind me. I blinked, thinking maybe my eyes were playing tricks. But when I moved again, the reflection didn't quite match. It was a fraction of a second out of sync. My heart pounded in my chest. I stepped closer to the mirror, my face inches from the glass. I stared at my reflection, trying to see something, anything that could explain what was happening. The image in the mirror was me, but it was like it wasn't quite me. My eyes looked wrong. There was a dullness in them, a flatness that I had never seen before. I reached out and touched the glass, my reflection doing the same, but slower, more deliberately. I recoiled, my breath sharp in my throat. What the hell was happening? I couldn't make sense of it. Couldn't wrap my mind around the reality I was seeing. My skin was still warm to the touch, but everything around me, the apartment, my reflection, the city outside, felt like a dream, like I wasn't really there. I walked away from the mirror, but the image lingered in my mind. It wouldn't let me go. The night felt endless. I tried to sleep, but the shadows in my room seemed to stretch longer, thicker. Every noise, no matter how small, made my heart race. I could hear my own breath in the silence, and it was deafening. When I closed my eyes, I felt like I was floating, like I was no longer anchored to this place I wasn't sure if I was even awake anymore. Was this real? Or was I trapped in some kind of twisted dream? When I finally managed to fall asleep, the dreams were worse. I saw myself, my reflection, but it wasn't me. It was someone else, someone I couldn't recognize. Their eyes, my eyes, were cold, empty. They weren't mine, and yet they were. I woke up gasping for air, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding in my chest. My phone read 4:32 a.m., but something was off. It was too early, too perfectly early. I checked the time on my phone again, but the numbers didn't match. I swiped to unlock it, but the screen didn't respond. My hands were shaking as I tried again and again, but the phone wouldn't work. I threw it across the room in frustration, and when it hit the floor, it shattered. A part of me felt relieved. Real, maybe, for the first time since this all started. But even as I felt that small comfort, I knew deep down that it didn't matter. My phone, my reflection, even the time on the clock, it didn't matter. Nothing felt real anymore. I sank to my knees in the middle of the room, overwhelmed by the sense that the world around me was slipping, unraveling. I was losing myself piece by piece to a reality that didn't make sense. But what scared me the most wasn't the feeling of things slipping away. It was that I wasn't sure if I wanted to find a way back. Was I losing my mind? Or was this something bigger than me? Something far worse than anything I could imagine? I didn't know anymore. But deep inside, I could feel it. Something was coming for me, and I couldn't escape. The cracks in my reality weren't just appearing. They were widening, pulling me further into something I couldn't control. And what I didn't know was that it was only going to get worse. I couldn't ignore it any longer. The reality I had been living in was falling apart. And no matter how many times I tried to convince myself it was just stress or exhaustion, the cracks kept growing. The world around me wasn't real. It was warped, shifting in ways I couldn't control. I could feel myself slipping further into something I didn't understand, and I needed answers. The one person who might have them was Selena. I had to see her again. I couldn't shake the feeling that she knew something I didn't. Maybe, just maybe, if I confronted her, if I pushed her to tell me everything, I could fix this. I could make it stop. I called her that night, my voice shaking as I spoke. Selena, I need to talk to you. Please, I don't know what's happening, but I need answers. Her response was hesitant, like she was reluctant to meet me, but she finally agreed. We arranged to meet at her apartment again. Though this time, I wasn't sure I could even trust the place we were going to. Would it be the same apartment? Or would it too be part of the shifting world I now found myself trapped in? When I arrived, the door opened almost immediately, and Selena was standing there, but she looked different. Her eyes were wide, filled with something I couldn't quite place. Fear, maybe, or something worse. The usual calm, confident woman I knew had disappeared. "Come in," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a tremor in her hands as she gestured for me to follow her inside. I stepped into the apartment, and I immediately noticed something was off. The air felt heavy, thicker than I remembered. There was no warmth, no comfort in the space like I once felt. The walls seemed to be closing in, and the quiet was suffocating. The apartment was eerily still. It wasn't just the unsettling atmosphere. It was like everything in the room was waiting for something to happen. Selena motioned for me to sit. I did, reluctantly, my heart racing. I had no idea what she was about to tell me, but whatever it was, I wasn't ready for it. "I tried to warn you," she began, sitting down across from me, her hands tightly clasped in her lap. "I told you to drop it, to forget it." I couldn't just ignore it, I replied, my voice almost desperate. "You're the only one who knows something. You know what's happening. I need to know, Selena." She closed her eyes for a moment, almost as if trying to gather the strength to say the words. When she spoke again, her voice was low, almost haunted. "Taylor isn't who you think she is. None of us are." I blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "Of course she's human, Selena. What are you talking about?" "No." She shook her head slowly, as if trying to make me understand something that had taken her years to come to terms with. "She's not human the way we are, Taylor. She's caught in something far beyond our understanding." I felt my chest tighten. The words didn't make sense. Taylor wasn't just a pop star. She wasn't some mythical being. But she's normal, right? I asked, the doubt creeping into my voice. "She's just like everyone else, isn't she?" Selena's gaze hardened. "No, she's not. You've only seen a piece of her life, the carefully crafted one. But there's a darker side, a side you don't want to know about." She paused, as if weighing whether or not to continue. Taylor's agelessness isn't just a freak accident or a result of genetics. It's a curse, a trap. And the worst part is, she doesn't get to choose. She can't get out of it. And neither can you. My blood ran cold. The words were too much to process. What are you talking about? What do you mean she can't choose? She just doesn't age. Exactly, Selena said, her voice shaking now. She doesn't age, but she also doesn't live. Not really. Taylor is stuck in a loop. Every few years, she's reborn. But it's not a new life. It's just a reset. She's caught in a cycle of reincarnation, but with no real freedom. She's trapped in time, and every time she's reborn, a part of her is lost, piece by piece, until she's nothing more than a shell of who she once was. I sat there, completely stunned. This didn't make sense. This couldn't be real. Could it? Selena's eyes softened as she saw the disbelief in mine. She doesn't remember the previous cycles. She doesn't remember the other versions of herself. But I do. What are you talking about? Why would you... How could you know this? I've been around for too long, she said quietly, her voice almost breaking. I've seen it happen. I've seen her be reborn, again and again. And every time, I lose a little more of her. But she doesn't see it. So she doesn't feel it. I felt like I was suffocating. Like the air was draining out of the room. So what does this have to do with me? Selena looked at me for a long time, her gaze piercing through me. You opened the door. By asking about her, by digging into this, you crossed the line. You've tapped into something bigger than you know. And now, just like me, you're stuck in the cycle. You've already started slipping through different realities, different versions of yourself, and there's no going back. Once you've asked that question, you're in it. I felt like the floor was falling out beneath me. What does that mean? What happens to me now? Her voice was barely a whisper, but it was clear. You're becoming part of her world. And soon, you'll realize you'll feel it. Time won't matter anymore. You'll stop remembering what was real and what wasn't. Just like her. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but no words came. I was trapped, just like she said. I was already slipping. But what Selena didn't tell me was how quickly it would happen. How soon I'd lose track of time and my place in it. The world around me continued to distort, warp, and twist in ways I couldn't understand. Every day felt like I was waking up in a dream. But the more I tried to break free, the more I realized this wasn't just a dream. It was a prison made of time. A time that never stopped shifting, bending, or distorting. I spent the next few days trapped in a haze, unable to make sense of anything. My mind was racing, too fast to catch up with what was happening to me. I couldn't tell if I was losing touch with reality or if reality was losing touch with me. Was I still in my world? Or had I crossed into another one without even realizing it? There were moments when I thought things were normal. I'd wake up in my bed, go to the kitchen, have coffee, and leave for work. Just like any other day. But then something would happen. Something small. Something wrong. A detail that didn't belong. The way a shadow moved across the wall when no one was there. The way the air in a room felt suddenly too thick to breathe. Or how the time on my phone was constantly off by a few minutes. And it wasn't just the little things. It was the people. The people I knew, my friends, my coworkers, didn't seem real anymore. They were acting the same, talking the same, but their faces, Their faces looked different, almost like they were masks, hollowed out shells. Their eyes didn't match their expressions, and every interaction with them felt rehearsed. It felt like I was living in a world of mirrors, where the people reflected back at me weren't real, but they were so convincing that I almost couldn't tell the difference. One day, I ran into an old friend, someone I hadn't seen in years. I was excited to catch up, but when I said her name, she didn't react the way I expected. She smiled, but it was stiff, forced, like she didn't remember me at all. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" she asked, tilting her head as if I were a stranger. I froze, a cold sweat creeping down my neck. "It's me, Rachel," I said, trying to laugh it off. "We went to school together." Her face remained blank, the smile still plastered on her face, but there was no recognition in her eyes. "I don't think so," she said flatly, then turned to walk away as if the conversation had never happened. I stood there, rooted to the spot, unable to move. That was it. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just losing my grip on reality, I was losing myself in it. The world around me was shifting, changing, but I wasn't able to keep up. I couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't. It wasn't just the people, it was everything. The buildings, the sky, the sounds. It all felt wrong, out of place, like I was walking through a dream that wasn't my own. And that's when I realized something far more terrifying. I wasn't slipping through time. I was slipping between realities. It wasn't just one world I was living in. I had somehow become untethered, moving from one version of life to another. And each version was less familiar than the last. Each reality had subtle differences, tiny shifts that made it impossible to understand what was real anymore. I was no longer in control. I had crossed into a realm where time wasn't linear and reality wasn't fixed. It was fluid, and I had no way to keep up with it. Every time I thought I had a handle on what was happening, it would slip away again, pulling me into something else. I started seeing things I couldn't explain. Shadows moving when there was no one there, whispers on the wind that sounded like my name. At night, the city outside my window seemed to change. One minute, it was quiet and still. The next, it was filled with a cacophony of voices, all murmuring in unison, words I couldn't understand. I didn't know how much longer I could keep going like this. My sense of reality was being ripped apart at the seams. I couldn't tell if I was in a nightmare or if the nightmare was becoming my life. I was losing myself in the loop. And the worst part, I wasn't sure if I even wanted to escape anymore. Every time I thought I had made progress, every time I thought I was getting closer to the truth, it only led me to more confusion, more questions. Every time I opened my eyes, I found myself in a different version of reality, like I was trapped in a maze I couldn't get out of. The more I searched for answers, the more the world seemed to shift around me. I felt like I was running out of time that wasn't even mine to begin with. Taylor had been trapped in this cycle for who knows how long, and now I was part of it too. I wasn't the only one. There were others. People who had asked the wrong questions. People who had crossed the same line I had. And now, they were all part of this endless loop. Their lives tied to a reality they couldn't control. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I was just like them, caught in the cycle, unable to break free. I tried to remember the last time I felt real. The last time I woke up and knew exactly where I was, who I was, and what I was doing. But that person was fading. That life was slipping away. I wasn't the same anymore. I felt myself becoming part of it, the cycle, the loop, Taylor's world. And with every passing moment, I realized there was no escape, no way out. The loop was tightening around me, and I was just another cog in the machine. But as I became more entwined in the cycle, I started to feel it. Something darker, something I didn't want to face, was about to consume me, and it was already too late to escape. It had been days, maybe weeks. Time didn't seem to matter anymore. Each new day felt like a repeat of the one before, but different. The same faces, the same places, but nothing ever felt like it belonged to me. My life had become a collection of half-remembered moments, and the more I tried to piece it together, the more fragmented everything became. I had stopped questioning it, stopped fighting it. What good was there in trying to return to a reality that didn't exist anymore? Every attempt I made to break free from the loop only pushed me deeper into it. Each time I thought I'd found a new way out, I just ended up in the same place, stuck in the same distorted world. The worst part? I was starting to forget who I even was. It was like the more I experienced these different versions of my life, the more I lost myself in them. Faces blurred, places shifted. Time was no longer something I could trust. Every day felt like a ghost of the one before. And with every shift, I felt like I was becoming part of it. Part of the cycle I couldn't escape. I had become a bystander in my own life. A puppet with no strings moving through these realities as if I were simply waiting for something to happen, but it never did. I was becoming like Taylor. Stuck, ageless, frozen in time. Only I didn't want it. I didn't want to be trapped in a loop where I couldn't even remember the life I once had. I walked down the same street I had walked 100 times, but it felt different now. The buildings seemed taller, the air thicker. I could feel it pressing against me, holding me in place. My eyes darted around, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The same faces, the same streets, the same everything, but it was wrong. It was all wrong. And then I saw her, Taylor. She was standing there, just like I had seen her 1,000 times before. But this time, something was different. She wasn't just watching me anymore. She was waiting for me, and her eyes locked onto mine. And I felt a shiver run down my spine. She didn't say anything, but I didn't need her to. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just stuck in the cycle anymore, I was becoming a part of it. My face, my life, my time, it was all blending into hers. I could feel it happening. The loop wasn't just some abstract concept anymore. It was consuming me. It was dragging me in, pulling me into a reality where I didn't belong. Taylor had been waiting for me to realize it, waiting for me to become one with the endless cycle she had been trapped in for so long. I was no longer an observer. I was a participant. And now, there was no way out. I had crossed the final threshold, and in that moment, I understood the truth. I was never going to escape. I was already part of the cycle, just like Taylor forever. Final payoff. I've lost track of how many times I've woken up, but every time it's the same. The world shifts around me, yet it stays exactly the same. I'm caught in a cycle, a loop that I can't escape. The faces, the places, they blur together, all of them familiar. All of them wrong. And Taylor? She's always there, watching, waiting, a constant in every version of this reality. I tried to fight it, to break free, but now I understand. I've become part of it. The loop doesn't just trap you, it remakes you. And once you're in it, there's no way out. I've crossed the line, just like Taylor. And now, like her, I'm timeless. Stuck in an endless cycle where nothing is real and everything is a reflection of something that never existed. This is my reality now. There's no going back. I'm trapped forever.